Hi everybody, Carmen from EC Language here, and welcome back to my channel. So like I said last week, after doing my introduction to Mandarin and Cantonese series, I will be taking a little break from doing series for the next couple of weeks and be focusing on doing sort of like little videos about, sharing my learning experience, my teaching experience, and how you can how you can effectively learn a language and, just kind of fun facts about the languages I teach and so on. So today's lessons, I've compiled a little list of tips and tricks on how you can learn any language quickly and effectively. Okay, so we're first going to discuss about interest, your reason for study, and also passion for the language you're studying. So this is something that I find is very helpful when you're studying a language. So for me, my personal example would be the two languages I've studied in the past are French and Mandarin. For French, it was nowhere near as good as I was in Mandarin. That the main reason was because I was just simply not interested, right? So I was forced by my secondary school to study French. I didn't want to. It was difficult. I was just not interested, right? I wasn't interested in French language, French entertainment, French culture, or anything. So for me, it was quite hard to actually find the motivation to actually study French. I didn't have a reason to, except for the fact that school forced me to, and I wanted to get good grades. With Mandarin, I was actually interested, right? So I grew up watching lots of ancient costume dramas, and I started, first of all, I started watching Cantonese ones, and then I started watching Mandarin ones. And then I find that it was quite fun linking my existing knowledge of Cantonese to the Mandarin I was hearing. So I started kind of picking it up. I started to actually be more active in learning. So like writing words down and then like making a mental note that, oh, this is how you say this in Mandarin. After a while, I actually started taking it seriously, right? So I started watching more stuff in Mandarin Chinese, and I started picking up more stuff. And my brain has kind of like wired to subconsciously absorb content whilst I was consuming it. So like it is very important that you have interest in this this language, right? And it's important that you have passion. Your reason for study as well. Okay, so there's many reasons why one person might want to learn a language. So for me, for example, I would learn Mandarin because it's a very useful language. It's fast becoming one of the most popular languages in the world. It sounds really nice. So I love the sound of Mandarin. I already know Cantonese. My parents were highly encouraging, right? And, there's a lot of opportunities in terms of career-wise that I can get following Mandarin. So that was one of my biggest motivations. With my students, so as you guys know, I'm also a teacher. So with a lot of my students who are learning a language, some of them key reasons for learning a language is for work. So maybe they started work in a new company that requires English, or they want to increase their work prospects for being able to speak Chinese or English. For studying, so lots of people who want to go abroad to study the master's or a PhD, or even do their undergrad degree abroad. For traveling, your partner speaks this language and you want to be able to communicate with their family more effectively, and just general interest, right? So example is like a lot of friends who study Japanese because they're really interested in Japanese culture and Japanese anime and Japanese pop culture and so on. Consuming entertainment content is also, I will say, very useful. It's not 100% important, but it's very useful. So that kind of like for the reasons I just mentioned, right? You really want to be able to absorb the content without trying too hard to, right? So obviously when you're studying, you need to balance active and passive studying, but you want to have some passive options as well. So example for me, again, I wasn't interested in studying French, and neither was I interested in absorbing French culture, also French content. So my language, I wasn't able to grasp the language as effectively as I was able to do for Mandarin. So how much does being able to speak this language mean to you? How badly do you want to learn it? Maybe you want to be able to communicate to your family, your partner's family more effectively. You might want to achieve polyglot status. That is my personal goal. Or you might just want to speak more languages, right? Or you just want to talk to more people. So one of my key goals was actually I really want to be able to teach English Chinese to my students in their language as well. So at the moment, I'm trying to pick up some French, and my plan is to actually kind of restudy French because I've got a lot of students from France, and these students are mostly they're young children, and they can't speak English or Chinese, so it was very hard to actually explain certain concepts to them because they can't understand. So that is one of the reasons why I want to pick up more languages, because I want to be able to teach the language I already teach in their language and help them learn better. And maybe one day I can even teach these languages, just kind of like boost my own credibility, my own abilities. We're going to talk about your second reason or second tip: finding a starting point and adhering to a plan. So it's very difficult to find a starting point, especially if you have got like some bits of knowledge scattered everywhere. So for me in Korean, for example, so I always started to learn Korean, but then kind of stopped. So now I have random like scattered bits of knowledge of Korean everywhere. So I always feel like I shouldn't start at the very beginning, but at the same time, I shouldn't skip it as well, because there's probably a lot of beginner stuff that I should really know. So I would say find your starting point. Okay, so if you're complete beginners, start at the very beginning. Okay, so even if you feel like you've got scattered knowledge everywhere, start at the beginning. Adhere to a plan. All right, so it's very, very important that you have a plan. So what I mean by that is, like plan your learning. How are you going to fit your studying into your daily life or around your studies or your other studies or your work commitments? How much time are you going to dedicate to studying? Right, so are you going to do 10 minutes a day? Are you going to do 20 minutes a day? What about the weekends? How much time are you going to dedicate over the weekends? Right, so think about these things and stick to it. Okay. What time will you study? All right, so it's very useful to kind of dedicate a certain time a day. So I have a student who actually dedicates the morning before work to study. So he has a lesson with me before work, which is like 4 a.m. in the morning for him. And he has like another lesson with another teacher just after me. And then that all happens before work. And then it just helped him just kind of keep that kind of flow, consistency, right? So it just keeps on going. How will you lay out your week? Okay, so I highly recommend, and I think lots of like language teachers would also recommend, doing little bits of studying every day rather than a big chunk once a week. Because with learning a language and you want to pick it up quickly, you want to like keep your brain active in this language. Okay, so like 10 minutes to 20 minutes a day, practice this language. Okay, so that is very, very important. So don't let your brain become idle. Okay, so keep your brain active in this language. It helps you pick it up much faster. How will you fit studying into your daily life with other commitments? So I was talking about that, picking a specific time of the day that you will do your studying. It's kind of the same as working out. Think about that, right? You want to dedicate like that time slot to studying. So also one thing that I find very helpful is finding a language partner or a teacher to help keep you on track. Right. So for me, I always try to study Korean by myself. I always give up because, after a while, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm busy. I'm just going to, skip today. And then what happens? I start skipping it the following day and then the following day after that. So I don't have a teacher to give me homework and keep me motivated and to keep me on track. So I highly recommend that you do this. Okay. So find a teacher, find a language partner, something like that to kind of just keep you on track. Okay. To keep you motivated. So yeah. Also, teachers very helpful. So what I do with my students, especially in the first trial lesson, is we kind of devise a plan. So because every student learns differently, I can't just use one plan fits all kind of approach. So I would discuss, how do you learn best? How do you want to learn? How much time do you have to commit? And so on. And then we work out a plan together. So that is something I recommend you do with your teacher. So if she or he doesn't do it like on their own accord, you should suggest it. Okay, so work out a timetable, visual timetable if you must, anything that can help you. Third tip, vary your methods of study. Okay, so don't grind, right? Unless you really want to get this language learnt as soon as possible and you really want to do some sort of intensive course and you're able to handle it, good, cool, good for you, right? Go ahead with that. That's perfectly fine. But if you are somebody like me who finds studying tedious, then I suggest don't grind. Okay, so you might want to grind a little bit, but not too much. So have fun with your studies. You don't want to hate the language of studying. You don't want to hate it. You want to have fun. So that just grind, keep it balanced. Okay, so watch things you enjoy in your target language. Okay, so like I said, films, movies, you can read things as well in like some in a language, but make sure you're enjoying it. Yeah, so but if you actually enjoy your kind of like if you enjoy the content you're consuming, you will be able to absorb more. Like you're subconsciously able to like absorb more. So therefore I highly recommend doing that. Um yeah, so balance this is something that I recommend to my students. Balance passive and active studying. So what I mean by active and passive studying is so passive studying is just consuming content and that's it, right? So just watch a film, watch a movie, watch the news if you want, watch something, read something, and just kind of switch off your mind and just watch, right? So don't worry about understanding, don't worry about the difficulty of the language, just watch, consume the visual content as well as you're listening. Active studying is if you actually actively try and study what you are like absorbing, okay, what you are consuming. So for example, if you're reading, right, you're reading like a article, for example, so an article, print it out, highlight it, make notes, like have a look at the words you don't know, study how it is used, study the example it's used in, the context it's used in, ask your teacher, read it with your teacher, watching things as well, try and listen to how things are pronounced, actively copy the pronunciation. This is what I call active learning. Okay, so the reason why just having classes and lessons is not enough is because you want to do something, you want to immerse yourself in like reality as well. Like how is the language usually used? If you base your learning just on textbooks, you're probably not going to get that feeling of reality as well. Okay, so you need to get used to how the language is used and why it's used, common words, common phrases, idioms, and so on. Okay, so that's very important. So study little bits every day rather than a big chunk once a week. Submerge yourself in that environment if possible. So I have some students who are serious about learning a language, so they will actually live in that place for like a couple of months to really, really challenge themselves and stretch themselves. Okay, so if it is possible for you, I recommend you do that as well. Okay, so if you have an opportunity anywhere to work anywhere, go for it, right? So if you want to learn Chinese, find an opportunity to work in China for a while. Okay, that really, really helps with your improvement because you're forced to actually use that language and understand that language. And, again, your subconscious plays into it as well. So you're subconsciously picking things up because you need to use it to survive. Okay, so survival instincts.